Today, we're jumping into a crisis that, let's be honest, pretty much every plant parent has faced. The sudden, heartbreaking collapse of a plant that was doing just fine. We are going on a full-on rescue mission, and we're using a real-life plant emergency from Reddit as our guide. So, let's get our hands dirty and see what really happened here.
So it all starts with this post from a Reddit user, and you can just feel the panic, can't you? One day, your peace lily is gorgeous, thriving, the star of the show, and the next, it's a sad, droopy mess. So what was their first instinct? They thought it looked thirsty, so they gave it more water. And right there, with the absolute best intentions, is where our mystery really begins.
And this is the great paradox that drives plant owners crazy. The pot is heavy, you touch the soil and it's damp, but the leaves, they're hanging down like they're in the middle of a desert. So what is going on? Well, here's the twist. The plant is thirsty, but it's not from a lack of water. It's from literally drowning in it.
The Reddit community, of course, was on the case in a flash. They knew exactly what was happening. The owner's loving, well-intentioned watering was actually the problem. And this leads us straight to the #1 killer of houseplants everywhere. A nasty condition called
Root rot. Yeah, here's the thing we sometimes forget. Plants need to breathe through their roots. They need that oxygen. When the soil gets totally waterlogged, there's just no air left. The roots literally suffocate. They die, and they start to rot. And of course, once the roots are dead, they can't drink up any water. And that's exactly why the plant looks so thirsty.
And this is what makes it all so confusing. I mean, look at this. The top symptom for both problems is exactly the same: wilting leaves. They look identical. The real clue, the smoking gun, is in the soil and in the roots. If the soil's dry, okay, easy, your plant's thirsty. But if that soil is wet and the leaves are drooping, you've got to investigate. If you check those roots and they're brown and mushy instead of firm and white, you've got yourself a classic case of root rot.
Okay, so the diagnosis is pretty grim. But is there any hope? Oh, absolutely. The Reddit community came to the rescue with 2 totally different strategies to save this peace lily. It's kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure for plant recovery. So, the community laid out 2 paths. One is basically emergency surgery. It's a very hands-on, intensive intervention. The other is a much more gentle, wait-and-see kind of technique. Which path you choose really depends on how bad the rot is and, frankly, how comfortable you are playing plant surgeon for a day.
All right, so let's walk through the surgical option. First, you gently get all that soggy old soil off the roots. Next, you gotta be brave. You're gonna prune away any of those roots that are brown or mushy. Got them off. Third, to make sure you kill off any lingering rot, you give the healthy roots a quick dip in a diluted hydrogen peroxide mix. And finally, you repot the whole thing in fresh soil, usually in a smaller pot since the root ball is smaller now.
Now, if surgery sounds way too intense, there's the paper towel trick, and this is so clever. You just make a thick pad of folded paper towels and set the pot right on top of it. The dry paper acts like a wick, pulling all that excess moisture out from the bottom drainage holes. You just keep swapping out the soaked towels for a dry set until they start coming away barely damp. It's a much slower but way less stressful way to dry out the soil.
Okay, so performing the rescue is only half the battle. The aftercare is just as important, because right now that plant is in shock. What you do, and more importantly, what you don't do in the next few weeks, is going to decide if it pulls through. So let's look at that crucial post-op care.
This is the big one. You have to fight your instinct to nurture this plant. First things first, do not water it again until that soil is completely dry, deep down. You just rescued it from drowning. Let it dry out. And second, and this is a huge one, absolutely do not fertilize it. The roots are incredibly fragile, and fertilizer would just burn them. That would likely kill the plant for good.
And now for what might be the hardest part of all. You have to be patient. Recovery is not an overnight thing. A plant that's had bad root rot needs time, I'm talking months maybe, to grow a whole new root system. You might not see any new leaves or signs of life for a while, so you just have to wait.
So how do you keep this from happening all over again? The community shared this fantastic, super simple trick, the chopstick test. You just take a plain wooden chopstick and stick it all the way down into the soil. Pull it out and look at it. For a peace lily, a good rule of thumb is to wait until the chopstick comes out with moisture only on the very bottom inch. This tells you what's happening deep down in the pot, not just on the surface.
You know, beyond all the great practical tips, this Reddit thread offered something even more important, a little lesson in empathy. It's a powerful reminder that this common mistake doesn't come from neglect, it comes from a place of care.
And this quote from another user just sums it all up perfectly. Overwatering isn't a sign that you're a bad plant parent, it's a sign that you're a very attentive one. It's a mistake we all make, and it comes from a good place. So if this has happened to you, don't beat yourself up. It is all part of the learning process.
Which really leaves us with this final thought, doesn't it? In our desire to give our plants everything we think they need, we sometimes end up giving them way too much of a good thing. So maybe the biggest lesson in plant care isn't just about water and light, but about knowing when to step back and just let them be. Thanks for joining our explainer. Happy planting.